Our first guest spent years in the NFL, and it was hell on his body. Eben Britton stops by to talk to us about cannabis and how it helped him deal with the pain, and why the NFL isn't doing anything to help players like him. Let's take a look.
My name is Eben Britton. I was born in New York City, lived there until I was 10. My mom moved my brother and I out here to Los Angeles, and I went to middle school and high school in Burbank, California. I got into playing sports because it was one of the cornerstones of growing up. For as long as I can remember, I dreamed of being in the NFL. My mom would never let me play. She was like, "You're gonna get hurt." Going into my freshman year of high school, I had my dad help me convince her to let me play. From then on, it was eat, sleep, dream, think football. Started receiving scholarship offers. I played at the University of Arizona. In 2009, I was drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I ended my career with the Chicago Bears, where I played from 2013 to 2014. I didn't think much about the pain until I got into the NFL. The pain aspect of the game is unavoidable. Every single play, whether you're getting knocked down or you're knocking someone else down, you have to get back into the huddle and go again. And that's just how it goes. Every single guy in an NFL locker room is prescribed some sort of prescription anti-inflammatories, from Cataflam, Indocin, Celebrex, whatever it might be. And that's just to deal with the daily pain. You're out there practicing and you're expected to produce. The opiates come into play as the season gets rolling. There was always a couple of Vicodin after a game. Getting on the plane, you experience an injury that you have to go in for surgery, then you're prescribed, a monthly dosage of Vicodin or Percocet or Norco or whatever it might be. Having that experience with the pharmaceutical stuff and being able to juxtapose that to my experience with cannabis throughout that process, I realized that cannabis really put me into a state of healing. It eased my stress and anxiety. It allowed me to relax. It cooled my nervous system, helped me sleep, and really allowed my body to heal and recover throughout my career. There's an alternative that can be incredibly beneficial that isn't going to kill you. That these guys can get their families back. These guys can, live, somewhat normal lives after their careers.
Please welcome Eben Britton to the show.
Thank you.
Good to have you here.
Good to be here.
The first question that I have is, when did you first begin using cannabis as a player?
Cannabis became a continual part of my process my rookie year in the NFL.
And before that, did you use cannabis as a teenager growing up?
I think like any other curious teenager, I used it a couple times in high school, and it wasn't a pleasant experience. From there, I didn't really use it much until, I got to the NFL.
And how often would you use it?
Well, the way the NFL's drug testing is structured, there's an annual test. So once a year, the NFL drug test for street drugs.
Wait, just once a year?
Just once. On the other side of that, they have the PED tests, performance enhancing drug tests. Now that's done at random throughout the season. So as a player, you have a general idea of when that annual test is coming up. Sometime during mandatory team activities. And so, about a month before you come back to report to your team, if you're someone that consumes cannabis, then you cut your use, and then, when that annual test comes up, then, you're free to use whatever means necessary to get out of pain.
So it was pain, right? The discomfort where you were taking prescription drugs, and then you decided, or it was an innate feeling that I could use cannabis instead.
Right. Yeah, so just like any other guy on a football team any given Sunday, I was dealing with, torn labrum in my shoulder, herniated disc in my back, sciatica down my leg. And really, to deal with that pain, you're taking whatever it might be, Cataflam or Indocin, these really powerful anti-inflammatories that really wreak havoc on your digestive system, on your liver and kidneys. And that's just to deal with the daily grind. That's just to get up every day and to be able to get through meetings, get out to practice, and to be able to produce, before you even get to Sundays. For me, cannabis really became, an important part of my process in healing, because it wasn't putting me in this, it wasn't only masking the pain, it was actually helping me heal. And my experience with taking those opiates, I'd be in pain, I'd take some pills, and I'd really feel worse. My mental attitude was incredibly dark and negative. I felt irritable and angry, and I felt rage, juxtaposed to, the feeling of using cannabis. And to be completely honest, at that time, it was, I could be in pain, take pills and feel worse, or I could be in pain, smoke some weed, and get out of pain. I could feel my stress relief, I'd feel my anxiety go down, I'd feel just like I was placed into a healing state, helped me sleep, and really helped me recover. I came out of my career not addicted to any opiates, not on any prescriptions, and really feeling like I have a pretty decent quality of life, to be a father and a husband to my family.
What would you say that the NFL's understanding of the cannabis use amongst its players? Do they know what's going on? Do they know that it's, being consumed the way it is?
I think that they'd have to be foolish not to have some idea. I think that myself and a group of players have started throwing out numbers of, the estimations of how many guys in the league use cannabis. And I'd say it's at least 50%. Getting the NFL to start considering cannabis as, a safe alternative to the opiates, and also start looking at the research that talks about what it can do for concussions and CTE. So every time you have a concussion, there's tons going on every Sunday in the NFL. The brain hits the inside wall of the skull, damage occurs, receptors start releasing this stuff called glutamate. Glutamate is there to initiate the recovery process. But the problem is, in that dysfunctional environment where there's constant collisions, that glutamate sits in there, it becomes incredibly toxic. So it starts to scar and calcify the brain tissue, just like anywhere else in your body when you have an injury, right? You build scar tissue, that's your body's way of protecting itself. The problem is, in this vital brain tissue, you start developing a bone mass, and that continues to grow throughout your lifetime. And that's what they found with Junior Seau and Dave Duerson, and these really tragic stories of guys who've committed suicide. It's really coupled with dementia, Alzheimer's symptoms, depression. Potentially cannabis can be a huge answer to that, and specifically, CBD in this realm for its anti-inflammatory and neuroprotectant capabilities.
You said you played your best game stoned. I need to hear more about that, because I have been stoned and done martial arts, and I've been in that world. But tell me about your getting stoned and playing ball.
It turned out to be pretty controversial, which I thought was really interesting. It's if people are worried about guys playing high, the truth is guys are already playing high. Guys are taking handfuls of Vicodin, Adderall, whatever it might be, amphetamines or painkillers or anti-inflammatories or Toradol. In the early part of my career, that was outlawed because some research said that it thinned the blood to the point that it exacerbated the potential for concussions.
And this is a numbing agent, the Toradol?
Yeah, it basically make you feel like you could run through a brick wall. The only problem is the next day you wake up and feel like you ran through a brick wall, yeah, or were hit by a train.
And this Toradol, this is just given to everybody, or what? How do you qualify or get in line? Early
in my career, it was for anybody. You just go into the training room, you line up into the doc's office, and pull down your pants, let your butt cheek out, and he'll give you a shot right in there. Oh, goodness. I was tired of the feeling of, the painkillers and the opiates. I wanted to try something else. I tried smoking before a few games, and it turned out to be just a much better alternative for me. I felt, the mind-body connection was much stronger than taking, Vicodin or something like that. I was placed into a full, much more of a flow state.
So would you say that that's an enhancement?
Well, it's an interesting thought there.
Because you felt that way.
Yeah,
Competitor.
as a competitor, I felt like it enhanced my performance.
Sure. I mean, it'd be a funny jump to go from a Schedule I narcotic to a performance-enhancing drug. But I mean, we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
So your career ended after you were suspended for using Ritalin, right? But you had a prescription for Adderall? How does that work? Is that illegal?
I was diagnosed with ADHD. It was a tremendous help to me, in meetings, and as my body started deteriorating, really helped me get out of the pain mentally. Coming out of the bye week, my appendix exploded, and I was back home in LA. I was rushed to the hospital, had to have my appendix removed, spent a week in the hospital, came back to Chicago, was out of my prescription for Adderall on a day when I was back in work. It had become a crutch at that point, really, to get through my days. On a day when I didn't have my Adderall prescription, I took a teammate's Ritalin, basically, thinking they both treat the same disorder, ADHD. Of course, have a drug test sometime that day, and months later, after the season has ended, I get a letter saying that I failed a drug test for Ritalin. I wasn't able to appeal it, and they slapped me with a 4-game suspension. I was at the end. My body had had enough. Mentally I wasn't in it anymore. My heart wasn't in the game anymore. And I was ready to be done. So it was really this sort of confluence of events, the universe telling me, it's okay to step away.
So tell us, what are you up to now?
One of the things, cannabis advocacy has organically found its way into my life. I started writing about my experiences, dealing with injuries, drug policies, drug use, through my experience in the NFL. One of the big things I'm doing is I've started a company called Be True Organics. Really, we look at it as a wellness company that specializes in CBD products. We're starting with a topical pain relief cream, an oral spray for under the tongue, and a gummy. So all of these have hemp-derived CBD. There's no THC. It's completely non-psychoactive. And really, it provides a platform to educate and to, spread the awareness and build the conversation of what cannabinoids can do, what CBD can do for a healing benefit. And it's an incredibly great passion of mine to be able to, really spread this message and, build out this new awareness of personal wellness and healing.
Thanks a lot, Eben.
Thank you.
To find out more about Eben and the company, go to BeTrueOrganics.com. Now, coming up next, we're about to have some fun. You ready to be entertained? Stay right there.